Good afternoon, everyone. We are just going to wait a minute or two. Okay, everyone, let's begin the webinar. Let me first say thank you for joining us today. My name is Dr. Scott Thompson. I'm a doctor of occupational therapy and also the director of clinical services at Saebo Incorporated. Today, we're going to be talking about the SaeboFlex. But before we get started, I like to start these webinars by just giving a little bit of background information on Saebo itself. Saebo was originated or started back in the early 2000s by two brothers who happened to be occupational therapists. And what they found was that they could not find the best way to help people recover their hands. They saw that the hand would work a little bit or not at all. And when they left treatment or their treatment or other clinicians' treatments, there just wasn't a lot of success with the hand. So then they started experimenting with dynamic orthoses and came up with what we're talking about today, the SaeboFlex. Fast forward 15 years, and now we have an entire spectrum of clinical and patient equipment that we use to expedite the recovery process. And it was all started by what we're talking about today, the SaeboFlex. So did you know that the SaeboFlex is in the Science Museum of London? Well, this is actually sort of new. We released or we talked about it in the press very recently, but in the middle of November, the founder of the company, Henry Hoffman, went over to the opening of the Science Museum, and the SaeboFlex is on display with all sorts of medical devices and artifacts ranging back 500 plus years. And it's in the world's largest medical device exhibition called the Wellcome Galleries, and on permanent display for 25 plus years. So that is an amazing achievement to something that he and his brother created 15 years ago. So this is actually what the display case looks like in the museum. If you can see down here, this is the SaeboFlex on display, and of course it has some placards explaining about the SaeboFlex. And actually off to the right here, there is a video of the SaeboFlex, explaining exactly how to use it, etc. But what was amazing was when we first learned that we were going to have the SaeboFlex in a museum, I went on Google and went through several pages of Google trying to find other medical devices that were in a museum. And essentially, I could not find, there might have been, but I couldn't find anything for 50 plus years prior to the SaeboFlex. I found that there was a walker, which you can see here on the right. I found that there was a medical bed like this from like the 1940s, and I also found some exercise equipment like a stationary bike, etc. But for 50 or 60 years, there was nothing that was museum worthy until the SaeboFlex. So that's an amazing feat to what the brothers have created. So, I began this webinar discussing how the brothers developed the SaeboFlex and why. And here's some statistics showing you, even from more recent times, the low amount of focus on the hand and upper extremity in rehab. So if you have, for instance, this research from 2007, if you have an acute patient, they found that in the first 14 days of recovery, we're talking the 2 weeks following someone's stroke, they were only using their affected limb 38 minutes out of a 9-hour day. That's 7% of their day. And if you think about how often you use your hands, even as you talk, we speak and move our hands. 7% of a day using your hand, I challenge you just to hold your arm next to you for 5 minutes and see how often you want to move it or involve it, even while you're walking, even while you're sitting, watching TV, etc. It's amazing how often we personally move this. And that type of information as a clinician really encourages me to focus on the movement of the arm. If you look at the research here in the center, it says that people who went to a typical therapy session, which are usually 45 minutes to 60 minutes long, they were found to only be using their arm for 23 to 32 repetitions per session. That irks me. Think about it. That is one movement every 2 minutes. That is not efficient, and also lets me believe that there are a lot of clinicians out there that are not focused on the upper extremity, and we need to do something about that. Then, if you look at the research on the right side, they found that in 2015, on those same amount of session length, so 45 minutes to 60 minutes, they found that therapists were only working on activity-related arm training for 4 minutes a session. So we're talking less than 10% of the session is actually focusing on movement of the arm. This is why recovery can be extremely slow and difficult, and why the brothers and Saebo continually try to educate people and develop products that expand for the entire continuum of care. Speaking of that, here are most of our products that we have out for right now, but we have a few more in the works coming early in 2020 and a couple later in 2020 as well. But if you look up here, we have the Saebo glove. These three are orthotics. So we have the Saebo glove for mild to no spasticity, helping people extend their fingers and getting their hand in a functional position. We have the SaeboFlex and Reach, which we're going to be talking about today. We have the SaeboStretch, which is a dynamic resting hand splint, allowing people to move their fingers when their tone increases, but then helps them reset or safely position their hand back to where the tendons are stretched and they're not going to get joint deformities and tissue shortening, etc. Down here, we have our electrical stimulation. We have the SaeboStim Micro that talks about or focuses on sensory motor stimulation and sensory recovery by priming the cortex, as well as the SaeboStim Go, which is a easy to use. I can't emphasize that enough. It was designed to make sure that everybody knows how or can apply neuromuscular electrical stimulation to their body. It is a wireless wearable device that I've tested on myself, worn out in the community, etc. I love this device. We have the Saebo Mirror Box, which is, there's tons and tons of research about Mirror Box that actually shows that if you add it to anything that you're doing, including not doing anything at all, it will help leaps and bounds improve your recovery. The Saebo mirror box has a very large mirror, one of the largest on the market, as well as it was designed to be opened and closed with one hand. Down here, we have one of our other most popular products, and this is for foot drop, and that's called our Saebo Step. It's an out-of-the-shoe soft ankle brace that helps with foot drop and gait retraining, and allows you to wear it with any type of shoe. And then over here on this side, we have all of our clinical products, and that is a one-stop shop for electrical stimulation, as well as virtual reality for IADL, ADL training, and then virtual reality gaming here, where we actually, if you can see these little yellow dots, we have something called a manipulandum, where you play the games working on different grasp patterns, like tip-to-tip pinch and key pinching and opening a doorknob and a jar and picking up pennies. And it's amazing because you're playing a game, but then repetition-wise, you do tons and tons of repetitions working on those specific grasp patterns. And then last but not least, this is the device that most therapists fight over. This is called the SaeboMas. It actually attaches to an arm and then de-weights the arm, allowing people to, if they're weak or if they have pain or if they have spasticity, it allows them to do more repetitions and functionally train their arm quicker and faster. And we also have the home model of the SaeboMas called the SaeboMas Mini that is gaining popularity amongst clients and patients at home. So now that I've talked about sort of our continuum, I'm going to go back to the SaeboFlex. The SaeboFlex is a dynamic custom fabricated wrist hand finger orthosis. Long story short, it works on the very specific part from your wrist down, right? Because we can move our shoulder, we can bend our elbow, but if we cannot actually use our hand functionally, we are not going to be as successful in life as we would like to be. The design uses a spring-loaded finger and thumb extension system. So essentially, when somebody grasps, they grasp the object, and then those springs help extend or straighten the fingers when they're wanting to release an object. So as I talked about at the very beginning, the brothers that started Saebo were having issues finding the best resolution for hand recovery. There was a lot of focus and research and in recovery about the shoulder and the elbow, but again, not a lot of interventions that were successful on retraining the hand efficiently. And then what they found on top of that was that there was a large percentage of stroke survivors that had learned non-use. And I would say you could do that to any type of neurological injury, because when people don't have a body part that's working, they sort of just forget about it and then they learn not to use it. So imagine if you just said, hey, you know, my arm's not working, and then you choose not to work on it. Eventually, maybe in a very short amount of time, you're just not going to involve your arm in anything, and that is going to impede the rest of your life. So we want to make sure that we provide things that help people not learn to not use their arm. Okay, we have they also found that there was a lot of issue integrating the hand into functional activities. So now, even as clinicians, when people come out of school, you'll see some of the new clinicians like, oh, we got to focus on the hand, we got to focus on the hand. Well, the SaeboFlex and the founders or the co-founders of Saebo are actually part of that movement of changing the thought process to focus on the hand. It doesn't have to be from the shoulder to the elbow to the hand. It can start at the hand and work back towards the body. And that is sort of the paradigm shift that has occurred. The SaeboFlex, in fact, is in multiple different textbooks and is being taught in physical therapy and occupational therapy across the entire US. And I found out from someone at NBCOT told me that even the SaeboFlex is a specific test question on the OT national exam. So that's pretty cool and influential, which is why, again, it's in the museum. So how does it work? I mentioned it a little bit before. Essentially, when somebody grasps an object, the springs create resistance, but they have enough of that volitional power to grab an object. Then you place it in a specific location, sort of depending on your difficulty. You can put it right in front of them at midline, you can put it out to the side, you can put it up in the air, have it resting on something that's unstable. Just depending on the difficulty of the exercise that you want, you can put it anywhere. And then the person grasps that ball, gets a hold of it, maintains that grasp safely, and then places the ball into some type of bin. We use baskets or crates. Some people use boxes. I've seen buckets. I've seen, some people throw them depending on the dynamic movement they're working on. So when that person wants to release, we ask them to relax their muscles. So the SaeboFlex actually works on the spastic muscles that everybody says, oh, no, don't use those, you're gonna increase your spasticity. But what the SaeboFlex has proven, research time and time again, is that if you actually work those spastic muscles, they will relax and your spasticity will decrease. And that's what you'll find when you actually put this device on. I can fit this on someone for, takes about 10 minutes, maybe 15 if it's a difficult fit and there's some little tweaking we need to do. And then I can have that person start grasping and releasing. And after just that first session, their hand is very relaxed. There's no tightness, there's no spasticity. Or if there is, it's a lot less than it was when we started. So this is an example of how it works. You can see that he's not closing the hand all the way, and the purpose for that is because we don't want to kick in that spastic muscle to the point where it increases the spasticity. There's always a fine line when it comes to recovery, and the smarter you are and using the SaeboFlex, the quicker that recovery is going to be. I also wanted to include a little bit about the anatomy. Just because clinicians know about anatomy and probably can know what the flexor digitorum superficialis is, but for those of you who aren't clinicians, this is the specific muscle that helps bend the knuckle in the middle of your fingers. So the way that the SaeboFlex is designed is we have digit caps blocking the knuckle at the very end of your fingers, and we also have a dorsal hand plate blocking the big knuckles at the beginning of your fingers where it meets the middle of your hand or your metacarpals. So we're actually functionally working on just the muscle, the flexor digitorum superficialis, that actually bends that middle knuckle. And that's why this is extremely successful, because it is one of the major spastic muscles that limits movement and also creates tissue shortening for someone who walks around in sort of a clenched fist position. So here it is, underneath all these other wrist flexors. So who is a candidate for the SaeboFlex? Essentially, you want a patient that has limited shoulder and elbow movement and limited wrist and finger extension. So essentially, if you have a limited upper limb, this person can use it. Most of the time, we use this on people with moderate to severe spasticity, but it's not limited to use with that. It is the only thing that I've ever found on the market that can actually successfully fight that level of spasticity, though, which is why it's designed with such strong plastic and metal parts. The criteria for using this is you want a little bit of shoulder elevation, 15 degrees or thereabout. You want some elbow flexion so that you can bend your elbow, and that's, again, 15 degrees, give or take, and that's because you want to have that volitional movement to be most productive with this device. If not, it doesn't mean that you won't use the SaeboFlex. It just means that maybe you need a little more training to get to that level, and then you can start using the SaeboFlex to really expedite your recovery. And then last but not least, we usually ask people to have about a quarter range of the ability to flex their fingers or bend them, so that we have that volitional grasp ability for you to be the most successful with using the SaeboFlex. Here's an example of a lady. If you look on the left, the video is showing her trying to grab the ball before she puts on the SaeboFlex. And what I love are always these baseline and then 20 or 30 minutes after videos, because you can just see, amazing. We put the SaeboFlex on her and she's able to grasp and release. It might not, and everybody always looks for perfection, including us clinicians, but what you notice is it's not the best motor movement, but she now has that ability to start training grasp and release and better motor planning and better movements with the ability to grasp and release and do repetitive training. Here's another example. Here's a gentleman who had some ability to open his hand. and he's trying to grab this cup. I think they wrapped it with not Dyson, but with some, elastic tape, etc., so he had better grasp. And then here he is with SaeboFlex on. Not even struggling. Even his body position and his arm extension looks a little better. Look at that. That's pretty good. So here's a trial of a gentleman, and what we're doing is we're going to show you some videos of the progress that someone can make. So we're going to call this person JG, and he received therapy 3 times a week for 12 visits. So that's 4 weeks of therapy, and he had 45-minute sessions. And if you remember back to that research I talked about at the very beginning, typically in a 45-minute session, you're going to see 23 to 32 repetitions, or 4 minutes of activity-related function. And what the SaeboFlex allows you to do is a repetitive, task-oriented arm training. And then it's also included with some gross motor equipment that we use to progress his recovery, as well as give him difficulty levels that challenge him. So here he is on visit 1. They ask him to lift his arm, and you can see a little bit of what we call flexor synergy, that arm tucked in and elbow bent immediately. Here he is on the right. He's doing the same thing front on. That's the movement that he has when he starts using the SaeboFlex. Here he is on visit 2, using the SaeboFlex. Look at that. His arm's straight. He's not having to hunch over as much. He's actually rotating his thumb downward a little bit, which is some supination, or I'm sorry, pronation of the wrist and forearm, which is excellent. That's what we use naturally. And then on the video on the right, he's actually grasping balls that are elevated by a few inches and then switching them over and putting them back into a hole, which is actually working on accuracy. And as you can see, not always accurate, but it allows him to progress and work on other repetitive activities that are then relational to what you do in the daily life. Here he is on visit 10. So we're talking 3 weeks later. Here's the pegs. Look at that. Now let me go back. If you look at the picture on the right, look how close these plates are together. Approximately, 8 inches, 10 inches apart, and he has trouble even doing that. And then 3 weeks later, he can rotate all the way across and reach and stand on one leg. That's pretty amazing recovery. And it's assisted by using our orthotic. But our orthotic is not an end-all be-all. It is a tool to help someone learn that they can grasp and release and begin that recovery process and expedite it so that they can return to the function and the level of function and the tasks and the jobs and the hobbies, et cetera, that they want to do in life that they miss because of their neurological injury. Here he is on his final day. Oh, shoot, the SaeboFlex is gone. Look at that, 4 weeks. And that's how much recovery this guy has. And he had 12 sessions. That is what is possible with using the SaeboFlex. So as you can see, she's having some difficulty trying to get that hand open. Here's 5 days later. Already able to open her hand and put it into an object. And then here she is 15 months later. Look at how much hand control she has. Open, close. Now, I don't know what the frequency was, but for having pretty much limited to no movement on day 1, and then 15 minutes later, she's doing 75–80% of the movements. To me, that's a successful recovery. Might not be fast enough for everybody, but I love to see progress every time I work with somebody, and I love to see the before and after. If you really want to see how fast someone's recovery can be, Here's a video. This is a gentleman that came to a boot camp that Henry Hoffman, the co-founder of the company, offers, where you meet for 2 or 3 days and get intense boot camp neurological recovery. And here he is, day 2. He already upgraded from the SaeboFlex to the Saebo glove because his spasticity reduced in 1 day. And he is using a functional triggered e-stim to help with the release in the Saebo glove, but that's just to sort of wake up the muscles. Here's day 3. Now he's not even being assisted by the Saebo glove. Talk about a success story. Those are little 1-inch cubes, by the way. So I know a lot of people have talked about the SaeboFlex, but we also offer the SaeboReach. And the SaeboReach was designed because most people that have an issue with their hand also have an issue with their elbow. And the requirement is that we ask people to extend their elbow out in front of them 10 times. And if you can't do that within a 1-minute period, then you are medically necessary to use the SaeboReach. And insurance will reimburse for both the SaeboFlex and SaeboReach. You just have to check your insurance and your local area to see if it is actually covered. So like I said before, it's the SaeboReach, which is the combination of the SaeboFlex and then a custom fabricated above elbow component. It uses tensioner system on the elbow to help it extend. So let me zoom in here. Here are the tensioners. This is the original SaeboFlex. And then with these side anchors, we have tensioners that go through an outrigger by the elbow. And then that allows that when you need to work on elbow flexion, you can wear that component to help you assist in elbow extension. And a lot of times what I will find, because those biceps are so strong or the people have been walking around with a bent elbow for so long, that tissue's short, that applying this at the very beginning with maybe some electrical stimulation when they don't have it on is really beneficial to someone's recovery of the triceps and getting that tissue lengthened for a more a more functionally useful extension of the arm so that they can do grasp and release and reach farther out in front of them. So here's another example of someone using the SaeboReach. He had therapy 3 times a week for 9 visits. So we're only talking 3 weeks of therapy. He had 45-minute sessions. Again, the research said only usually 23 to 32 repetitions in a 45-minute session. SaeboFlex, you can easily do lots more than that. I've seen people that the first time they even put it on, they'll hit 100, 200 repetitions, which is amazing. And then you have, again, the repetitive task-oriented training that lasts for an extended period of time, which is very, very important for neurological recovery. So here he is on day 1. Again, really trying to grasp, extend those fingers and grab that ball, but just having some issues. Here he is on visit 8, so 3 weeks later. The SaeboFlex and that SaeboReach elbow extension. Look at that. Oh, yeah. That's good. Putting his arm through a target, working across his body, being able to grasp and release. That's exactly what you want to see in recovery. Here he is, that same treatment when we removed the SaeboReach. Look at that. He can grasp and release. So again, day 1, couldn't even open his hand. Now he just rolled that ball into position, then grabbed it, extended his fingers, and now can place the balls in the crate to his left and release his hand like he wants to. And here he is 6 months later. I think that's pretty awesome. And that's a weighted ball he's throwing onto a trampoline. And then on top of it, he's going to now start alternating. Look at that. Look at how quick his response time is, his accuracy, etc. As a clinician, oh, I get chills. So I wanted to briefly tell you about some of the research that has happened with the SaeboFlex and the SaeboReach. There are tons of information on our website and probably 20 plus articles out there specifically about the SaeboFlex and SaeboReach, but here's just a few of them. So the first one says essentially that people with chronic strokes can get better in a home-based training. So we're not even talking in the clinic, just at home, which is part of the missing component of what is in therapy now. A lot of people focus on what can I do in the clinic? You can't do anything without me, etc., and give them maybe one or two exercises. But really what Saebo has found is that if you can prepare someone to do an excellent home exercise program, that recovery is expedited exponentially. Here in 2012, Stuck et al., they found that training in the acute phase of stroke shows significant clinical improvements. And when that happens, that is, there's no chance to that, it is significant. Okay, it also worked on this, what we call the psychosocial side, which it improved a patient's motivation and their participation in rehabilitation. So that's excellent. That's one of the hardest things, especially in the acute phase of stroke. People's life just changed. And it is helping with the motivation and participation. You know, SaeboFlex has been found to be effective in hemiparetic upper extremity. It's been found to be successful in acute phases, which is, you know, day 1, 2, 3 to, let's say, the first few months of stroke, all the way up to 23 years post-stroke. There's a research article out there about a gentleman who was successful 23 years later using the SaeboFlex. And then, of course, you find that there is a sense of self-regulation and intrinsic motivation when using the SaeboFlex combined with e-stim. So essentially, when you use e-stim will help you finish a movement or excite those muscles to do a larger muscle contraction or movement. And when you combine that with the SaeboFlex, people are highly motivated and then actually regulating their internal drive to participate and do these types of exercises with and without a clinician. And then finally, in 2017, there was essentially there was that research article about the gentleman that 23 years after his stroke, he could still make recovery. And it's essentially the main point was that don't give up on recovery after 3 months or 6 months, which seems to be the main consensus. It's not the case. If that person still has a neural connection, read this article. 23 years after having a stroke, he made recovery with the SaeboFlex. Pretty amazing. So I want to thank you for joining us today on the webinar. I wanted to remind all the clinicians out there that we always offer a 10-day in-clinic demo, or, you know, it's essentially 2 weeks with a little bit of shipping time, but you can request any of our patient or clinical products and we'll give you a few weeks to try it out in your clinic. And also, we are running a special only in the US that if you are interested in purchasing a hand treatment kit, which is a one-stop shop for all upper extremity recovery, then we'll give you a special discount before the end of the year. I also want to reiterate that anybody who has patients that might be suited for this, or any of the clients or patients that are listening right now, we offer you a 30-day risk-free money-back guarantee. So all you do is you pay initial shipping and handling like you do if you buy something off a TV, and we ship it to you. And we even made that super cheap. But we ship that product to you, you try it, take it out of the plastic, wear it, try it, bend it, fix it, rearrange it. Really try that product for 30 days to see if it's the right solution for you. If not, no big deal. Contact us and we'll give you a 100% refund and even pay for the shipping to come back. I also want to point out that using the coupon code New Year 2020, if you're ready to start improving your recovery for the new year, just like the people that go out and get a gym membership and say, this is the year I'm going to get fit. If you're ready and motivated, we can using New Year 2020 coupon, you can receive $25 off any product of $150 or more. You got a new year with a new goal, and that can be a new you. Thank you again for joining us on the webinar today. I'm going to open up the floor for any questions. If you're on a computer or a mobile device, all you have to do is type in your question. There's a little comment or question box. It depends on which device you're using. And then I'll answer some questions here for a minute or two, and then we'll be done. Unfortunately, I can't mute or unmute everybody because it would get quite noisy with all the background noise. But does anybody have any questions? Oh, I did forget to mention that if you look on the device, I included two handouts. One is a PDF of all of the slides that we went over today, and another is that Saebo Solutions circle with all of our products. And you can click and download those. If not, you can contact me and I can send it to you. We have a question here. Can I watch this webinar later? Absolutely. For you, if you want to share this with any of your colleagues or any of your family members, etc., your physician, whatever it is, all they have to do is go to our website to where they logged in, or you could forward them the email that you might have gotten to register. And all they do is put in their information real quick, and the recording of this will automatically start. So here's a question. It says, will Medicare reimburse therapists for using Saebo products? Highly considering starting. Awesome. Okay, so someone is motivated for starting in their own clinic using Saebo products, and we have several people out there that have done that. That's why I love working for Saebo, and I chose to work for Saebo is because we have products to help any type of patient in neurological recovery from the acute phase all the way through to the continuum. And as I showed in the research with the SaeboFlex, motivation is a big factor that comes into someone's recovery, and giving them a product to help expedite the process or help them do something like the SaeboStim Go, which is our neuromuscular, simple, quick, easy to use, wireless eStim device, or even the SaeboStim Micro, working on a sensory system, which has a huge deficit influence if you don't work on it. Those two things somebody can do while they're sitting and watching TV. Even the SaeboStim Micro has a program that runs all night long. So you get cortically stimulated while you're asleep. Get 3+ hours of electrical stimulation when you're doing nothing but sleeping. So Medicare reimburses therapists for typical therapy intervention, and that's what you would bill for. However, a lot of the things are standardized, and I am working closely with the co-founder, Henry Hoffman. I'm producing some protocols that we can use or that we suggest for training. And we've started making new videos that we're going to be launching in 2020. And a lot of those are going to have some answers to that type of question. If somebody wants to reach us, you can go, the easiest way is actually go to our website, go to www.saebo.com, and there is a chat feature both on Facebook and on our website that you can immediately talk to a representative Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US. You also can call an 888 number and or send in a request to either sales@saebo.com, or if you have clinical questions, you can send in an email to clinicalsupport@saebo.com. Just to reiterate, SaeboReach and SaeboFlex are covered by insurance, but it always depends on your region and what the reimbursement rates are. So definitely check your local insurance and or the insurance carrier to see if they will reimburse. A lot of times going through an orthotist and prosthetist, that will help expedite the insurance coverage. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate you for coming out. And if there are no more questions, I wish you adieu. And again, you can watch this video again or contact us multiple different ways on our website or via email, and we can answer any questions that you may have. Everybody have a wonderful day and have a wonderful holidays. And I'm looking forward to the new year. Have a great one.